This is your members only series, Debunked and Dissected by Crime in Court. We're exposing junk science, flawed convictions, and dissecting what makes a serial killer. Let's uncover the truth together. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Crime in Court with Heather. I'm excited to announce the very first members only series, Debunked and Dissected, the very first episode. We are going to be talking, I think, appropriately about the Reid technique and how officers can and sometimes do coerce confessions out of innocent people. So, we're going to be talking about that. This series is all about talking about junk science and things that probably shouldn't be in the court of law, but they are. So we're going to talk about those kinds of things. Things like behavioral analysis, like behavioral cues and things like that, body language. That is junk science. Ballistics is junk science. Um, Bite marks, which is going to be the next episode. So there's that's something to another episode that I'm looking forward to doing. Really, this series I'm excited about because this whole forensic stuff really excites me, and I hope that you guys like it as a members only bonus. Originally, as I was setting up memberships, it was going to be once a week or once a month. You were going to get one episode a month. So I am also excited to say that we're going to be doing it twice a month. You're going to get it on the second and the fourth Friday of every month. So I'm excited to tell you that because I think it's going to be a good series and we're going to get into a lot of good stuff. And they're meant to be like shorter little episodes, so we don't go on forever and ever. So like I'm doing right now. Just kidding. But so that is the announcements that I wanted to make. And finally, the last announcement that I want to make is that because this is new and memberships are new, I'm going to be having this particular episode public because I want the non-members to see what this episode or what the series is about. It's going to be junk science. We're going to dive into a next episode. So this week we're talking about the Reid technique, how we get coerced confessions. Next week we're going to be talking about bite marks and using the Ted Bundy trial as an example. Ted Bundy is, if you know me at all, I'm really, and it sounds insane to say, but I'm really into serial killers. I've always been into like interested into why the mind, thinks the way that it does, and how people can do the things that like the rest of society is appalled by. And I've always just been really interested in the forensics, in the psychology of it all. So this is what this series is going to be. So I'm excited to give it to you public. All uh, anyone can watch this one, but that this will be the one and only public, unless for some reason there's something that I really want to go public with in the future. But this will be the one and only public. Next week, the Bite Mark series is going to be members only. So if you are interested in that, I suggest you get a membership. It is only $2.99 and you get a whole bunch of stuff, including two of these episodes per month. So now that I've gone through all that, let us get started on today's presentation. This is all about the Reid technique and how confessions can be coerced. And if you know science, if you or not science, if you know um, famous cases, if you follow true crime, that is Brendan Dassey on the left, and then the black and white photo are the Central Park Five. All of these young men were teenagers when they confessed falsely under pressure from law enforcement. So we're going to talk about that. So let us dive in. Hold on, my dog needs her blanket. Sorry about that. Now that she's situated, she always likes to be close and under a blanket. So if you ever see a green pile of blanket, it's her. um, Anyways, that is Hazel. That's her name. So let's get started with this presentation that I put together for you. And we're going to watch a couple clips, but mostly we're just going to talk about the technique. So, the 9 steps of the Reid technique. There are 9 that law enforcement learned. So, first of all, what is the Reid technique? It is a technique that was developed in the 1950s by a man named John Reid. He named it after himself. It is, and this is probably a very conservative number, very conservative, I would say, is that the John Reid technique is used in about 60% of the country for interrogations. I would say it's probably higher than that, but that's the statistic that we know that are using the Reid technique. It is very common. Once it came out, it was being trained. Every law enforcement officer was being trained with this, and because you were getting confessions, you were closing your cases. So that's where this came about. So it is a 9-step method, and we're going to go through each step individually, but just as an overview, some of the steps want to deal with confronting the witness or suspect, and they create a theme development. They will create, their own narrative to what happened that day or to the situation that they're talking about. They will interrupt when the suspect denies anything. Often they might redirect the conversation. We're going to see some examples of that. And then they also overcome objections. And then eventually, they will get their confession. The goal for all these law enforcement officers is to get a confession. When they're applying this technique, it is to get a confession. So that means that they are already presuming that you are guilty. In the court of law, we are innocent until proven guilty, but that's not how it goes in law enforcement. In law enforcement, you are guilty, and that's it. You can't even prove your innocence because anything you try to do, they will twist it and turn it and make you seem guiltier somehow. So the real issue with this is that it assumes guilt. It assumes the individual's guilt when that person may or may not have done whatever the law enforcement is trying to elicit out of them. So this is directly, I wanted to do this cut and paste so you see that this is directly from the John E. Reid Associates website. And they did a survey. It says we recently sent out surveys to 2,000 randomly selected Reid graduates who attended our training on the Reid technique of registered trademark of interviewing and interrogation. So it is a registered trademark product that this guy just sells. He has his own website where he sells this product, like to teach it. He has courses to teach this Reid technique, and that's how he makes his money. So this survey went out in 2001 and 2002. Here are the results of the survey we received concerning their success using the Reid technique. These are startling numbers, by the way. 95% of respondents reported that using the Reid technique helped them to improve their confession rate. 95. Guarantee some of those people were innocent that were in that 95%. The majority of respondents said that they increased their confession rate over 25%. It's like a goal to them to get more confessions. It's like a quota or something. Do they have a quota at the end of the month? They have to get so many confessions? Like that's what this seems like. It's the goal is to get a confession, whether the person's innocent or not. Doesn't matter. The majority of respondents said that they increased their confession rate over 25%. Almost a quarter of respondents said that they increased their confession rates as much as 50%. And it goes on. 97% of respondents reported that using the Reid technique increased their case resolution rates. That was what I was talking about, that this gives them the confession and then they can close the case, get it off their desk. So there probably is some kind of quota or some kind of stigma in law enforcement that you have to close your cases. And in doing that, the easiest way to do that is to get a confession, right? You can apply this 9-step technique to Joe Schmo, whether he's innocent or guilty, and you're possibly very likely going to come out with a confession because that's how effective this method is. 99% of respondents to this survey reported that using the Reid technique increased their ability to identify whether a person was truthful or deceptive. That is 100% not even possible. You cannot tell if someone's deceptive or guilty just by looking at them or looking at their visible cues. Someone might be fidgety normally in real life, and that's just how they are, and a law enforcement officer might perceive that as guilt. I'm a fidgety person. They'd probably think I was guilty. You know what I'm saying? So this technique is very flawed. 98% of respondents reported that they recommend the training, and 100% of respondents reported that they thought the benefits they received attending the Reid Technique seminar was worth the investment that they made to attend it. So they're trying to get everyone else to learn this technique and get false confessions all over the world, I guess. These are user comments, and I only picked a couple that were really short. Most of them were long, and there were long explanations of I was trying to get this sex offender and I couldn't, and for all these years, and blah blah blah. And then I applied this technique, and voila, I got it. Like this. Approximately 2 weeks after the seminar, I worked an aggravated essay against a 2-year-old child, which is horrible. Not saying, I'm not belittling the crime at all, but I am questioning the method of how they got the confession. He said, this person goes on and says, it was a cooperative investigation with another agency whose detective also attended the same seminar as myself. So now you have two individuals putting the pressure on this person. I'd like to know how that conversation went. Was it recorded? Did that person willingly admit, or were they coerced? I think that deserves a look. Utilizing the techniques learned in the seminar, we were able to obtain a rock solid confession. We both remarked after the confession that the techniques we learned and used during the interrogation absolutely facilitated the suspect's confession. So they wouldn't have gotten it without pressuring them and using these mind control tactics, because really that's what they are. Our supervisor could not believe that we got the suspect to admit to his crimes. hmm I don't know if that guy was innocent or not, guilty or not, but I do question the method of how they got the confession. This next person says, I saw an immediate difference in my interviews. I've gotten so many confessions, it's worth every penny. You're getting all these confessions. Like they're bragging, like it's a good, this is what they want in life is confessions. They're not happy unless they get confessions. It's crazy. Don't you guys want the truth? I just don't understand why it's all about, yeah, we got them. They're all excited. If the technique is used properly, this person says, I honestly believe that any investigator using the Reid technique will have a 75 to 100% success rate in getting confessions. Right now, I'm 15 of 17 in getting confessions on cases that include SA, robbery, crimes against children, and cold cases. Your technique is strongly recommended by me. Those were just a few comments that I thought really strongly capture the fact that this is not necessarily a good thing, that they're getting all these confessions, but they're acting like, yeah, yeah, I'm getting confessions, woohoo! And I mean, yes, you want to close your cases, you want to get the bad guy, but at what cost? If you're putting innocent men away while trying to get the bad guy, I have a problem with that. So how does the Reid technique work? Very quickly, I'll go over kind of the different categories of what the steps do. So step one is a direct confrontation. So they basically say, we know you did it, we know how you did it, we know this and that and the other thing, whatever, whether it's true or not. They lie to you. Steps 2 through 3, they try to come up with a theme. They try to make it seem like, oh, it was an accident, right? Or whatever. They come up with a scenario, a narrative, however, they whatever they think happened. Steps 4 through 6, they will handle the suspect's denials, cut them off, redirect the conversation, build rapport like they're best friends, they're buddies. We're just buddies having a conversation here. And then they will offer an alternative like, oh, well, you had to do it, or something along those lines. Um, steps 7 through 9 are to get the confession and get them to write it down, which would be enforcing it so that you have it for a written confession, and that is pretty solid in any court of law. Unfortunately, they don't account for the fact that false confessions happen all the time, and this is a problem. And yeah, the courts will just take confessions as is, and no one really questions the validity of them, and that's the issue. This the issue is that it shows implicit bias towards guilt. The officers are seeking that confession, and it ignores people who are innocent. It also ignores uh, certain classes or individuals of people who are suggestible. And that is another thing that we need to discuss. But first, let's talk about the 9 steps of the Reid Technique. You can see he has his own product, his book, whatever. Like he's really selling this thing to law enforcement, military, all sorts of people in that line of work who are interviewing individuals. So the first step is direct confrontation. We talked about this. The interrogator will state firmly that they know the suspect did it. They know we've got evidence. We've got the evidence to prove it. You know, we've got the tape. Somebody has a tape of you doing it, even though there is no tape. And then you think, oh shit, it's like, well, how did I get it on tape? This is done with certainty to psychologically pressure the suspect to make them think like there is no out. We have you on tape doing this. Number 2, the step 2 is theme development. The interrogator offers moral justifications or themes to minimize the suspect's guilt, like, "Oh, it was an accident, right?" Or "You were provoked, you had to do it. You had no other choice," or "You were under stress." They try to make it seem they try to give you that out, like it's not so bad. And the goal is to make the suspect feel that the crime is understandable or less blameworthy. People will think less. People won't think so less of you. They will, it'll be okay. Then step 3 would be handling denials. The interrogator interrupts and discourages any kind of denial of guilt. Then they are reframed as lies, or they attempt to avoid responsibility, and framed as an attempt to avoid responsibility. So any kind of denial or alibi or something that you give, they're going to say it's some way of you attempting to deny plausibility in some respects. Persistent denials. If you're sitting there, I mean, what's an innocent person to do? They're going to sit there and deny, 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 right? So an innocent person's going to deny. We're going to see a sample of this. But uh, for they're met with confrontation by the officers. They don't take your word for it that you're not guilty. Overcoming objections is step 4. This is when the suspect offers excuses or alibis, the interrogator turns them into reasons of supporting guilt. So something like, so you say you were drunk. That explains why you lost control. Objections are reframed to reinforce the interrogator's negative narrative. So no matter what you say, basically, to a cop, if you're being interrogated, and you might not know you're being interrogated, you might walk in there thinking they're just going to ask you a couple questions, and then you go out in handcuffs because they use the Reid technique and they already had you guilty before you walked in the room. That's what they do. Number 5 is procurement and retention of the suspect's attention. The interrogator keeps the suspect focused on the interrogation by moving closer. We're going to see an example of this too. They use first names. They're going to maintain eye contact, be all this buddy, this rapport that they have with you, or so you think. They reduce physical barriers. So, a lot of times they will put you in the back corner of the room, and then they are in between you and the door, and you feel like you can't get out. You can't get away. Sometimes they'll get up and in your space. They might get right in your physical space to the point where it's, uncomfortable for you. They want to make you uncomfortable. They do that on purpose. It creates a sense of an inescapable pressure, which is very easy. You can see how easily it would be then to kind of confess so that this interrogation stops, right? A lot of people do that just so this uncomfortable line of questioning, this uncomfortable being in my personal space, I want it to stop. So I'm just going to say whatever you want me to say in order to get you to stop. And that's what a lot of people do. And that's how we get false confessions. Handling the suspect's passive mood when they're not responsive or they're not willing to participate anymore in your interrogation. They think that that is a sign of breaking. They're interpreting that as a sign of breaking, when in reality, if I shut down and I stop talking, it's because I'm done. I don't want to talk anymore. A lot of people, I'm sure, get that way, especially in a room with officers and you feel like you're being questioned about a crime. You're going to shut down. But they take that as it's a sign of them breaking. They're shutting down. So now we need to press harder. The interrogator offers sympathy and understanding to encourage a confession. Like, it's okay. We know, your mom wasn't very nice to you. It's all right. We understand why you did it, type of thing. The interrogator acts like a friend. So you can see how all of this combined would be very manipulative, very manipulative. And that's exactly what it's intended to do. Number 7, step 7, presenting an alternative question. So the interrogator offers two choices, both admitting guilt, but one more morally acceptable. So, like, did you plan this or did you just go crazy? Did you just go off? Whoops, I moved the thing. Did you just go crazy or did it just happen in the heat of the moment? This traps the suspect into you have to choose one or the other, or you think you have to choose one or the other. So then you choose the less bad one, right? The lesser version of guilt. Having the suspect, or number 8, is having the suspect orally relate various details of the offense. And by this time, you've already talked to them, you've already thrown in a bunch of facts that you think that this person is going to spew back out at you. So you've already thrown out a bunch of facts. You've basically tainted the investigation because now whatever the person's going to say and they're being pressured, they're going to say because they think that you want them to say it and because you put it in their head earlier. Um, Often this leads to a full confession when they start to verbally describe things, and then it converts to an oral confession converts to a written confession, which is 9. The interrogator has the suspect write or sign a formal confession, which is as good as gold to get that guilty verdict. And then often leading questions will be used to lock in the details. Like I said, they will feed those details to them up until the confession. And the confession is documented as voluntary. We we didn't pressure you into it. You're signing this on your own volition, right? That's how it's done. Reliability of the Reid technique. So when you get confessions like this, there's elements of junk science in here. So a lot of it relies heavily on behavioral cues, how you're moving, your eye contact. If you're avoiding eye contact with the investigator, they think you're lying. That's what they think. That's what this technique teaches you. I might just be looking at the ground because I'm bored, I'm sick of being here, and I'm sick of your freaking attitude and your questions, and I just want to go. So I'm avoiding your eye contact because I'm done with this conversation. Me, as an innocent person, I don't want to talk to you anymore. But they see me that as I'm lying. A lot of behavioral cues have already been debunked by the psychology world, and there is no clear, reliable behavioral cue that you can use for deception indicators. It just does not exist. Someone might act, like I said, fidgety or nervous. They might just be a fidgety person, and a law enforcement might find that to be guilt, a sign of their guilt, when in reality it has nothing to do with that. They're nervous because they want to get out of there. They use minimization tactics and, of course, gaslight the suspect. They lie to them. It is it is legal for law enforcement to lie to you, which I don't think should be the case. The Reid technique, like I said, gets high false confession rates. At least 25% of DNA exonerations that we have now have involved coerced confessions. So the investigator doesn't have the right DNA and they use a false confession to get their guy. And then someone else who didn't do the crime is sitting in prison, and someone who actually did the crime is walking and committing more crimes out there. That's how this technique works. The Innocence Project has been on the record as stating the Reid technique creates high pressure environments leading to 39% false confession rates in lab studies. So that's in lab studies. In the real world, it's probably even higher than that. But 40%, almost 40% of people giving false confessions because of this technique. That means in the real world, there could potentially be 40% of innocent people in prison. And it could be higher. We would have no way of knowing. But this study tells us that there are many innocent people in prison. Examples of the Reid technique in real life. So everybody knows the Making a Murderer was the huge Netflix series. Stephen Avery is doing time for the murder of Teresa Hallback, and his nephew, Brendan Dassey, was also investigated by law enforcement for that crime, and he was very much pressured, coerced. We're going to watch a little clip of it. They use his words. They assume evidence like, so when did you go over there? What time did you do that with Steven? Like they'll just assume a fact. And because Brendan Dassey, who is a teenager, so he's a juvenile, his brain is not fully developed yet, so he's definitely suggestible. He has a low IQ, so he is intellectually stunted. He cannot understand the manipulation that is being done to him. And he has no one in the room with him. He is all alone, a juvenile, all alone in the room with two officers being asked questions. I think he was in there for nearly 3 hours with them. And they even tell him, like, you're going to go home. Just tell us what happened. Just tell us the truth. You're going to go home and play your video games because that's all he wanted to do was go home and play his video games or watch wrestling. And yeah, these officers suck. So bear with me for 1 second. I got to switch over to our other screen. All right, here we are. We're just going to watch some of it. There are so many examples of them using the Reid technique on Brendan Dassey. So basically, you could pick up any clip, any part of this, and watch it and see the Reid technique being applied. Um, Also, what was I going to say? Um, I don't remember what I was going to say. So let's watch just a clip of this.
You went in your house, and this is about 3:45. Mm-hmm. Then what'd you do in your house? Be honest, because we don't have to go through this 8 times.
That's a common theme. He keeps telling him, "Be honest, be honest." So that's confronting him like, "I think you're lying," right? So be honest. Just tell us the truth. And that is a common theme that he keeps saying to Brendan.
I went into my room.
So, sorry, just one more comment to piggyback on that. So Brendan is now thinking that anything he says, they're not going to believe. They're going to turn it around and be like, well, tell us the truth. That's not what really happened. So they're already, this is 15 minutes into his interrogation. I lied, it was over 4 hours long that he was in there before they arrested him. All right, let's continue.
And because my mom told me I had to clean my room, I cleaned it a little bit and I played PlayStation 2 for a little bit. It was about like 5 o'clock. And my brother was on the phone with his friend.
Blaine?
Yeah.
Okay.
And he was talking about going trick-or-treating with him, and that Jason will pick him up at like 7.
So those are all real facts or details that he's recalling. I can tell that. I can tell that these are coming off of his mind. Like, yeah, that's really what happened. You're going to see a shift when they start being like, well, why did you do that? Or when did you do that? And it's something, implying guilt. His answers are not going to come out the same. They're very stunted and difficult to come out.
And then?
And then I ate and I went into the living room and I was eating in the living room and watching TV.
And what'd you see? Honest.
Be honest.
What?
Then what happened?
Well, then he called and said that he wanted help on his car.
Okay. Did he call you or did he come over?
He called me.
What, on your cell phone or on
the house phone?
He calls your house phone.
Yeah.
And this is about what time now?
About 6:30.
Okay. And what does he say to you?
He says, "Do you want to help me with to fix the car?" Because he said that if I would help him on his cars, he would help me find a car.
Okay.
And so I did, and then that's when he cut something and then it was leaking on the floor.
Let's stop right there. So he calls you and asks you for help to fix the car.
Mhm.
And you go over to his house.
Mhm.
And where do you go?
Into the garage.
And what's in the garage?
His Monty.
His Monty. Where's that Suzuki?
On the side.
Their theory is that, well, originally it was that Stephen stabbed Teresa in his trailer in his bedroom, and the forensics didn't line up with that. So now they're trying to say that somehow it was in the garage when it happened. So they're trying to lead him back to the garage a lot.
Is the big garage door open?
Mhm.
So you walk in there and this is Halloween. Okay. And what's he doing?
He's working on his Monty.
What about the fire?
Again, assuming a fact. What about the fire? What fire? How do you know there was a fire? I don't remember a fire. He's just assuming that there was a fire.
Do you mean if it was started or something?
He didn't even know how to answer. He doesn't know what he's trying to get at, because they're trying to say that Stephen burned body parts of Teresa, and Brendan's like, what do you want to know about the fire? Like, it was just a normal fire.
No, it wasn't.
Okay. We're not going to go any further in this because we need to get the truth out now. We know the fire was going. We know that he had already had his altercation with Teresa.
See, they're assuming all these facts. We know this, we know that, and now he's leaning in to Brendan. It's not as bad as he could be. He could be getting a lot closer, but he is leaning in to like make him be like, I'm focusing on you. We need to focus on this conversation. We need an answer to this.
We don't believe there's a Monty in there. I talked to you the other night, and you said nothing about Monty. You said nothing about something getting punctured and leaking out. We talked about cleaning something up in that garage. You told me that you thought, thinking back now, that it was blood. It was red in color. You're at your house, 6:30. I'll go that far with you. It might even been earlier. What's going on? Let's take it through honestly now.
Come on, Brendan, be honest. I told you before, that's the only thing that's going to help you here. We already know what happened. Okay?
We don't get honesty here. I'm your friend right now, but I gotta.
He says it. He just says it right out right. I'm your friend right now. Just tell me what happened. I'm your friend right now. I think that's good. I think you guys get the point. That was oh gosh, Fassbender? Yeah. Uh I can't remember the investigator's name. I think it was something Fassbender, and he's not fun to listen to when he was doing this interrogation. So that was from March 1st, 2006. We know that the sorry. All right. We know that the his conviction was overturned because of his confession, his coerced confession. But honestly, I have not been keeping up. So that might be something we could do an update on at a later time, is that Brendan Dassey was supposed to be getting his conviction overturned because of this coerced confession, but then um something happened and they delayed, and he was still sitting in prison. So I really have no idea where that was. So maybe we'll do an update on him at a later time. Um, So another example, as I stated in the beginning, is the Central Park Five. So if you don't know this case, this is a famous case from the 1980s where a bunch of young men from the city of New York in Manhattan, they called it wilding. That was the term that they used, which was basically just going and being kind of nuisances in Central Park this night. Apparently, there were a lot of people out in Central Park. This There were groups of individuals that, not necessarily that were together, but there were tons of people wilding all around. And with that, like they got like 60 kids' names or something like that. I don't know, but they interviewed a ton of them, and five individuals it was pinned on. And there's there's actually five videos of the interrogations of all of them. The problem is they were sitting in that room talking to investigators that were using this Reid technique on them for hours and hours and hours without meeting their basic needs, and without a lawyer, without their parents, without anybody there. They're teenagers, and uh, very bad situation for the teenagers. There were no rights that were really being taken care of or um, upheld for these individuals. They were put in these rooms, no video for like all those hours until finally they get them to confess. So the only confessions that we have on tape are where they've already been corrupted by the law enforcement officers because of the fact that they were talked to beforehand for so long and fed facts and things. So we're
His last
going to
name?
watch. Whoops,
Where does Steve live? You know?
pause. We're going to watch really quickly another clip. This is one of the Central Park Five. This is Corey Wise. He's getting they redacted addresses and things on here, but he is going to be questioned by this investigator, and listen to how she asks the questions. Again, it's very leading. It's like, it's not asking who was there, it's was this person there? Did you see this person? Did you identify that person? Like, it's putting facts or putting ideas into the suspect's mind before he can even get out facts that, say, well, I saw this person and he was 6'2" and had hair like this. Before he can even get out his details, she's feeding him details. So let's listen for a little bit.
And do you know Steve's last name?
No.
Where does Steve live? Do you know?
That's redacted.
Auto Florida.
Did you see anybody else in that group that you recognized?
A couple of others, but I don't know where they live at.
What were their names? Do you know?
Raymond.
This is in the precinct, but I don't know. Like they brought him into some kind of room where it's like a training room or something, and he's sitting at a desk. So it looks like he's at a school, but he is at a precinct because she refers to that in the interview. And they've got multiple people in the precinct that they're questioning about this particular crime. Oh, I didn't even tell you what the crime was. The crime was, I'm so sorry about that. The crime for the Central Park Five that they got um, pinned on them was a woman was jogging that night in the park, and one individual brutally essayed her, beat her up to the point of like left her there barely alive. And if somebody didn't rescue her, she would not have survived. I'm sure of it. And she was in the hospital for forever, trying to recover from her injuries and things like that. So that was the crime. And these five individual teenage boys were pinned for it by law enforcement. Later in life, after they're all sitting in prison, another individual who actually had a past of violent behavior, who was also in prison at the time, admitted or confessed finally to the Central Park Five for committing the crime in the Central Park Five case. And he now has done time, and everybody has been exonerated. But this is how law enforcement does it. It's not just one. They got five confessions, and I think they actually got more confessions, but not all of them got indicted because their facts were not correct or whatever it was. But that is, yeah, that's crazy to me. Your thoughts?
I'm sorry?
Raymond.
Raymond? Do you know Raymond's last name? Is that Raymond Santana?
Yeah.
He is one that also got convicted of this crime.
Known for that the first day.
Okay. Did you see him here in the precinct earlier?
Yes.
Who else did you see?
Assuming that he did see more people.
Fernando.
Fernando? That's not the same person as Fedora. Different person.
Yes.
And do you know? Oh, is it Orlando or Fernando?
Orlando.
Orlando. Do you know Orlando's last name?
No.
Do you know where Orlando lives?
Live in Foster. Foster. Illinois.
Again, redacted. We'll skip through some of this because it's a lot of the same thing where she's asking
His last name?
this person. Whoops.
Did you see someone by the name of Lamont?
Lamont.
Lamont?
No.
Do you know anybody by the name of Lamont?
No.
Was there anybody else?
So far, that was about it. That's all I knew. Everybody else was busting the crowd.
Do you know someone by the name of Clarence?
Clarence? No.
Clarence Thomas? Do you know him? You were saying that these people were all part of a group of 30 people.
Yes.
About. Where did you see them?
I saw them on tours. The park, Central Park.
Do you remember what street you saw them on when you first saw them?
10th Street and 5th Avenue.
And what did you do then?
I went over towards them.
Okay. Did your friend Eddie go with you?
Yes.
Did you speak to anybody when you went over to the group?
Yes.
Who did you speak to?
My friend Yusuf.
What did you say?
Yusuf also got convicted of this crime. I'm going to skip forward a little bit. She gets kind of, I can't remember.
Hey, we just going to the park, just do whatever.
The park to
She asks him what they went there for, and he's trying to give like this benign reason. We just went to the park to chill. but she's trying to make it out to be like they went there for violent purposes because she throws, like, she tries to redirect it. So listen to this part.
Let me ask you, when you say, you said that Yusuf said to you, we're going to the park to chill.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
As I'm saying, he's going to the park, just do whatever's there to do.
Did he say anything to you using the word violence?
No.
You don't remember that?
No. Steve said that.
Steve said that?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yusuf said you were going to they were going to the park to chill.
Yeah.
And did he tell you to come along, or did you say you were coming along?
Yeah, come along.
And what did you say?
So, okay.
When did you have a conversation with Steve?
It's just a day.
So that was one example of trying to like reroute it to violence after he's like, we were just trying to chill. We weren't there to do any or to cause any harm. Oh, come on. Hold on. Okay, sorry. I was trying to switch screens and it wasn't working for me. All right, so that was some more case examples. The Central Park Five, there are 5 confessions, and there's also others if you want to listen to those. They're on YouTube all over the place. You can find them. So the Reid technique tends to be on the more corruption side, I guess you could say, because police are trained to win. Basically, they want to win those confessions, like I said, and it ignores exculpatory evidence. It ignores facts that don't align with their narrative. They just ignore it. So that's what the officers are doing. I want to talk a little bit about nature versus nurture when it comes to the Reid technique because it doesn't work on everyone. And some people it works too well. So the Reid technique ignores mental health issues, it ignores vulnerable people like people with low IQs, people with autism. I've talked about Robert Robertson on uh, this channel in my Innocence Law series, and he um, confessed falsely because he couldn't understand the social cues and the manipulation that was being done to him. And he was a grown man and he confessed falsely under pressure. We're going to also talk about serial killers on this series because I'm just fascinated by them, but more so on like how the mind works. But for this for the Reid technique, serial killers, psychopaths, it doesn't work on them. They can be under pressure and it doesn't they stay calm, they stay, perfectly controlled. Ted Bundy, for example, the Reid technique failed on him and he passed a polygraph with no problems. So either he was innocent, think about that for a second, maybe he was not the guy and it was pinned on him. I don't really think that, but it's possible. So either he's innocent or he's a psychopath and he can pass the Reid technique, he can pass a polygraph with no problem. Speaking of psychopaths, MK Ultra comes into play here because if you don't know, the CIA actually created serial killers back in the 1970s with not Marilyn Manson, I was going to say, um, Charles Manson, and they used mind control techniques. They use psychedelic drugs. They use all sorts of different things. They used abuse, even. They used torture, things of that nature that they use to control people, control their behavior, control their way of thinking. And that is where the Reid technique comes in because it kind of echoes MK Ultra a little bit. If you know about MK Ultra and the things that they did, it kind of aligns. So, in reforms and alternatives in the UK, they don't even use they've banned, or I don't know if they've ever used the Reid technique. They use a model called the peace model, which focuses on information gathering, not confronting the witness and lying to them and saying, we know you did it," and putting the pressure on. It is more fact-based info gathering. In the US, it's starting to shift a little. Some states are requiring recordings because that way you can see if it's being coerced. But in the case of the Central Park Five, it didn't quite work because they were being questioned and interviewed for hours up until the play button hit, or the record button was hit. Science says that open-minded questions yield truth. Reid's 80% of success rate includes false positives. So all of that, like, investigators should be asking open-ended questions to get to the answers, not did you do this? Why did you do that? Or where was this when you did that? And those are the kind of questions that the Reid technique is suggesting we do. And then finally, the American Psychological Association has been quoted of saying that behavioral indicators, your body language and all that, is not reliable, and it leads to miscarriages. It leads to wrongful convictions. Finally, this is the last part. Um, so, in conclusion, why this all matters. Key criticisms of the Reid technique. It's not perfect, as you can see. There are a lot of problems with it. So it's a high risk of false confessions. Officers go in with the presumption of guilt instead of innocence, and they're trying to win that confession. It's unreliable when it comes to body language, and they're trying to interpret the body language. They misinterpret it all the time. It's coercive, and it used minimization tactics. So, it's a coercive way to get them to confess, like, well, you either did this or you did this, and this one's less bad, so pick this one. Vulnerability of specific groups like juveniles, intellectual disorders, and suggestible individuals is not accounted for in the Reid technique. Confirmation bias, it is hugely full of confirmation bias when it comes to these this style of interrogating, and it turns interrogation into manipulation. Some other real world examples include the Delphi case. In this particular uh, image, you can see Jerry Holman is right on top of him. The other guy's in there. He's in the back corner of the room. The door is, there's people between him and the door. He's cornered. The funny thing, though, is that the Reid technique did not work on Rick. He stood his ground and he denied, denied, denied. And Jerry Holman, the officer there, was very insistent, persistent, and he yelled and screamed at times. And it was very coercive. But Rick stood his ground. But they got him in prison because they dosed him up with Halidol, lots of it, and then I'm sure tried these techniques on him in prison to get the confessions. All of those many confessions that he did. I'm sure they used these techniques, and probably worse. The Yogurt Shop Murders, that is a recent, I think, Hulu series that came out, or maybe it's Netflix, I'm not sure. But there were four men who confessed due to high pressure tactics and have been exonerated for the crime of homicide. And finally, I thought this was really interesting. Juan Rivera. Um, this is a more recent incident, but so the John E. Reid and Associates company has been sued many times because of their tactics. And they even have an office that they do their own, interrogations and polygraphs and things like that. And they also do training there. So this Juan Rivera settlement, he got $2 million because of the way that they treated him, the tactics that they used in that, in his investigation. And uh, 2 million, that's a pretty good settlement. So whatever they did, they definitely did something bad. because he got a settlement. So I'm gonna flip us over. We're gonna watch just a little bit of Rick Allen's interview with Jerry Holman.
Compare that to any DNA that we.
This is not the clip. Hold on. This is not the clip. Sorry about that. So this is the clip that I wanted to show. It reverted. I had it set up, but it reverted back to the other clip that I didn't decide on showing. So this is, but you saw how close he was sitting to him before. Now he's changed positions. The other investigator that was in the room, for whatever reason, he's not there, but Holman is sitting there across from Richard Allen in the Delphi homicide. He's been convicted of that. This was just supposed to be like he was going in to answer a couple questions and I think to get his car back from searching. Oh my gosh, my bread maker. I hope you don't hear that. It's like really loud. I'm embarrassed. Um, I'll mute myself in a minute. My bread maker squeals. Um, so anyways, let's watch this.
Not that I know of.
You don't hunt. You said you fish.
We mushroom hunt. Yeah, I fish.
Okay. I'm just trying to figure out why that round from your gun will be out there. I'm giving you the.
Not.
I know you don't want me to give you opportunities, but I'm giving you the opportunity. But you never mushroom hunt on that side of that ditch.
So he's going to be asking him a lot about the gun and trying to find out what, or he's going to be Holman is going to be saying like this bullet, this casing came from your gun, and Richard Allen's going to be arguing like I don't know how that happened. My gun was never even with me. So you hear the back and forth of how the Reid technique can be used for someone who is innocent and how they can coerce a confession.
Well, 2000, you weren't mushrooming. It was too early for mushrooms.
A little bit. It was just a seasonably warm day. So I went for a walk.
Okay. And nobody had your gun that you know of.
I'm not answering that. I've answered it 15 times.
I mean, obviously, you would tell me if somebody did, because then that would put them there and not you. Because right now, you are already out there by witnesses, and you and I both know that realistically, the evidence doesn't lie. So
It obviously does,
if you
that's
did
what it's
know,
saying.
I think I know you well enough. Maybe I don't.
So Richard Allen does push back and he denies and he says, it wasn't me, it wasn't me. He holds his ground during this entire interrogation, but Jerry Holman arrests him anyways. And I think the evidence was so thin for him that's when they started using Halidol to get his confessions.
That if you did know somebody borrowed your gun or had your gun, you would tell us.
Of course I would.
Okay. So it's realistic for me to believe that you were the only one to have your gun. Excuse me.
I've answered that 15 times.
Okay. And you said 15 times. That's true.
So he keeps asking the same question over and over again, hoping he's going to get a different answer. That's part of it too.
So like I said, I'm trying to help you. If you don't want me to help you, I won't. I'll leave it.
I know. That's fine.
If you notice, Richard Allen's eyes, he's been looking around the room. He's not necessarily looking at Jerry Holman. And as we learned, not making eye contact with the officer thinks that you're guilty or you're lying. And that might not necessarily be the case. He might just be done with this conversation.
What I'd like for you to do is tell me again what happened, because you didn't tell me. I watched the interview. I'm just trying to figure out why your round from your gun was 6 inches from those girls.
And I'm telling you, that's not possible.
He says, your gun was 6 inches from those girls. They're relying on junk science, ballistics, junk science, and again, he's assuming facts that aren't necessarily proven. And he's saying that your gun was there and like asserting these things, confronting him.
Do you believe in science? Do you believe in...
I believe in science. I don't understand all of it.
I don't either, but if a scientist, a certified analyst, is telling you that this round came from this gun, specifically this gun, not this type of gun.
I get all that. I know what you're saying. And what I'm telling you is that bullet did not come from my gun if it was found at that murder scene or on the bridge or where, like, it didn't come from my gun is what I'm trying to tell you.
And I'm trying to
So
it did, and they're telling me it did. So now I'm trying to figure out who had your gun, and you're saying nobody did 15, 16 times, and who had a round from your gun. Did anybody have your ammo? I don't know. You explain to me. You try to explain to me why.
I'm not going to try to explain. I told you that.
You can't.
Do you see how easily they can get a confession? Just trying to push and try to assume those facts that aren't there and make it seem like that it's science. You can't argue with the science. Well, actually, you can, and that's the whole point of the jury or the court system is you have dueling experts. So you're going to have experts that might read or interpret the data differently. So just because they're Melissa Oberg, who, in order to make the bullet match bullets from his gun, they're saying that it was unspent and it was but it cycled through the gun, so it had markings on there apparently. But she didn't get it. She couldn't replicate those markings by cycling a bullet through his gun. She could only replicate those markings when she fired the gun, which is absolutely two different experiments. So I don't even know how that was allowed in court. But that is what happened to poor Richard Allen, and I believe he is 100% innocent, and he stood his ground. You saw him stand his ground in the interview. But once they started dosing him up with Halidol, it's a little harder to have your right mind there, especially when people are using these kinds of tactics on you. They are meant to get a confession. So that is all I have for you for our very first Debunked and Dissected members only, but this one's public, but all future episodes from now will be members only. We will do like I said, bite marks, and we're gonna be talking about the Ted Bundy case and bite marks. And that's where I leave you. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please hit that like button. If you are interested in seeing the future upcoming episodes of this series, which we're doing second and fourth Fridays of every month, you can become a Justice Insider for $2.99. You get two members only episodes, and also a bunch of other things. So be sure to look into that if you are interested. Thank you guys so much for watching. Take care. Bye now. That's our breakdown for this junk science myth busted. We'll be here the second and fourth Fridays of every month. Thanks for being a Justice Insider. Comment your thoughts below, and I'll see you in the next one. Stay vigilant.